Exposed, the amazing moment a little girl transformed a lonely CEO's life with just 5 words. Jake Thompson stood at the edge of his penthouse balcony, the Chicago skyline stretching before him like a kingdom built on ambition and greed. He breathed in the cool night air, but something tightened in his chest, an unfamiliar sensation creeping up from his gut. Behind him lay a meticulously orchestrated life, specializing in profits and performance reviews. Yet the glimmering waters of Lake Michigan did little to soothe the gnawing emptiness lurking beneath his tailored suit. It was an outrageous irony. The more he climbed, the more isolated he became. His corporate world was a finely tuned machine. Among the high-stakes meetings and cutthroat deals, he had excelled, leaving friendship and family gatherings behind like broken toys in the attic. The cost felt heavier every day, yet surrendering to that weight threatened the very identity he'd built with mantras of success. This internal conflict brewed like a storm. Should he continue sacrificing the personal for the professional? When a local community center reached out, Jake hesitantly accepted the opportunity to volunteer. A distraction, he told himself, something to appease his growing discomfort. Arriving at the center felt alien. Laughter echoed in stark contrast to his silent evenings. The bright chaos shook his foundations, revealing unaddressed emotions that rolled like a tidal wave through him. Children's faces radiated warmth, while he donned a facade of dignity. Did success truly mean standing alone? Then he met Mia. There she was, an 8-year-old girl with wild curls and a carefree spirit that tore at the layers of Jake's heart. Her smile lit a spark he hadn't realized was dimming. One day, amongst crayons and drawings, Mia looked up at him, her bright eyes glimmering with a playful challenge. "You can share your love, you know?" Those 5 words struck him hard, like an unexpected punch to an already fractured soul. At that moment, everything he thought he knew about success unraveled, exposing the void left by his sacrifices. Returning to his high-rise office the next day felt stifling, each piece of art on the wall a reminder of what he had forsaken. Whispers of concern slithered through the boardroom. His focus was wavering. His time spent with the less fortunate drew criticism. Jake clenched his jaw, feeling the muscles tighten in his neck. The corporation he commanded valued cold, hard facts, not the warmth of compassion that had ignited in Mia. The tension inside him built, locking horns with the ambitions that had fueled his ascent. What would they say if they knew he found solace in the laughter of children rather than the monochrome drone of business life? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow.
If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The evening felt palpable with indecision as he returned to his penthouse. Gazing out over the lake, anger and fear battled for dominance. What did he want? Genuine connection or the polished, empty titles that lined his wall? Each option manifested its own fears, falling from grace, discovering a life devoid of love, sacrificing perceived success for a reality that could crumble at any moment. Jake felt trapped in a relentless cycle, caught between the ghosts of family dinners he had forsaken and the slice of innocence that Mia represented. As urgency curled around his heart, his phone buzzed with an unscheduled call from corporate. Bated breaths echoed in the silence of his thoughts. A choice loomed before him like a cliff's edge. Continue down the path laid out by his corporation, or leap toward the unknown, embracing a life that held something richer than mere wealth. With the weight of everything he'd built pressing down, there lingered the fearful question, what kind of man did he want to be? The rooftop cityscape shimmered with promise and peril, beckoning him to decide before the night closed in. Jake stared at his phone, the screen illuminating his face in the darkness, a stark contrast to the swirling shadows of his thoughts. It felt surreal, 2 worlds colliding. On one end, the relentless pursuit of contracts and boardroom accolades. On the other, a little girl's heartfelt invitation to embrace love and vulnerability. Was this call from corporate the catalyst for his descent into further isolation, or a pivotal moment to assert a new path? He tossed the phone onto the polished glass table, the dull thud echoing fatalistically. Each missed opportunity to express his true self hung heavily in the air. He could almost hear the laughter of children echoing against the walls of his penthouse, mocking the austere silence he had created. The corporate grind promised power and success, but left a chasm that widened daily. Fighting against his instincts, he wondered if detaching from the material world could lead to some version of liberation. With a deep breath and shaky resolve, he picked up his phone again. The instinct to push the corporate call away battled with a surge of determination to take control of his life. It could have been so simple, to slide into the comfort of bureaucracy and enjoy the fleeting praise of his peers, but a subtle whisper provoked him, urging him to embrace the discomfort, the very essence of change. What if he could use his platform for something greater, elevate the lost connections with his own humanity, and inspire others? That Friday, he made an unexpected decision.
Instead of attending the customary weekly strategy meeting, he opted to visit the community center. The thought alone brewed chaos inside him, triggering pangs of anxiety. What would his colleagues think? The fear of ridicule was palpable, yet fueled by a growing sense of purpose. He arrived, arms full of art supplies, every step toward the brightly colored walls flooded with kids' artwork, feeling like an act of rebellion against his old life. Mia spotted him immediately, her excitement infectious. "You came back," she squealed, running to him with unapologetic zeal. And for a moment, all his doubts melted away. He realized he missed this, moments of unscripted joy. They delved into projects together, laughter spilling into the air, bringing a warmth to Jake that felt foreign yet exhilarating. As the evening wore on, something in Jake began to stir. Mia's innocence sparked conversations with the other kids, their playful banter echoing the childhood he had lost but desperately wanted back. He watched, transfixed, as they crafted stories and shared dreams without inhibitions. The realization dawned. Success could take a different form. It could mean creating bonds rather than counting dollars. But as the smiles lit up the room, shadows began creeping back into his thoughts. The impending board meeting sat at the back of his mind like a weight. Would he still belong in this world of children's laughter, when the sharp-edged expectations of corporate life pulsed insistently? The balance felt tenuous. The looming decisions threatened to shatter his newfound clarity. What if embracing love meant losing everything he had worked for? The chatter around him faded slightly as he battled with an unsettling truth. His identity was entangled in those very expectations. Could he redefine himself without losing the fight he had fought so diligently? A new fear took hold. What if he truly did take a leap of faith, and it all came crashing down? Before he could answer, Mia pulled him back to the present, presenting a painting she was particularly proud of. "Look, this is us," she gleamed, the colors wild and free, and for just a moment the fear slipped away. But in his heart the storm raged, and the question loomed large. When would he find the courage to face the board, and more importantly, his own deep-rooted fears? Everything in him yearned for authenticity, but looming over him was the need to confront the inevitable. What awaited him once he stepped outside this bubble of warmth? His heart raced, teetering on the edge of revelation and ruin. The challenges were just beginning, and within that chaotic swirl of emotions, he felt the unsettling stirrings of something deeper. Was change truly within his grasp, or just a fleeting fantasy? The time had come to decide if he would embrace the unknown as he plunged into his new reality. The weekend passed in a blur for Jake, interspersed with bursts of joy from his time spent with the children and an undertow of dread that threatened to engulf him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was straddling two entirely different lives, one that grasped for the praise of shareholders and board members, and another where he could breathe freely amidst the laughter of children. As Monday approached, his heart raced at the thought of the board meeting. Would they notice his absence? Would they question his commitment? Discomfort coiled in his stomach. He found himself pacing the length of his living room, glancing at the clock, each tick echoing a challenge to his resolve. In moments of reflection, Jake leaned into the heat of uncertainty. He could picture the sterile boardroom, the polished table reflecting a harsh light on the faces of his colleagues, all vying for the same hollow accolades. As the thought of the corporate world swallowed him, he had a fleeting vision of Mia's painting, her childlike imagination bridging the chasm of his soul's despair. The notion made him reconsider everything, the reports, the strategies, the lifelong chase of success that felt increasingly like a race toward ruin. Yet, there was something powerful simmering beneath the surface, a deep-seated desire he hadn't fully understood until now, a yearning to connect, to forge something real. It was this urgency that propelled him to spend his free time with children, where he felt so much more alive, more visible. He directed his resolve toward a decision. There was no path that didn't involve risk.
He found that he could either wrestle with his twin identities in torment or embrace this messy transition toward authenticity. The possibility of facing the board while openly discussing his newfound commitment to community outreach stirred an exhilarating fear inside him. Could he risk being vulnerable enough to present that with conviction? As he sat at his desk late that night, fingers hovering over the keyboard, he began crafting an outline. He would not just attend the board meeting. He would take this opportunity to share a vision, one that merged the tenet of corporate success with the warmth and creativity thriving in children's hearts. Each sentence felt like tearing down the walls he had built around himself. He wrote, allowing his thoughts to flow in a raw, unchecked manner, about the light in Mia's eyes, flickering with hope and joy, about the bonds forged from shared experiences rather than transactions. For the first time, as he encapsulated those moments in sentences, hope surged within him. But fear crept in as well, like shadows at dusk. What if his colleagues dismissed him? What if the very idea of nurturing relationships over spreadsheets was met with scoffs and derision? The likelihood of being perceived as a naive dreamer haunted him. In that silence, Jake felt his heart pound against the ribcage of uncertainty.
Could he commit to being the visionary he aspired to be? The question hung low, and he steeled himself for the struggle. The day of the meeting finally dawned, and as he prepared to present, he felt the undercurrent of all his decisions coalesce into a singular moment. The once intimidating boardroom now felt like a stage. Would he command it, or fall prey to the voices of doubt? He exhaled softly, feeling the love and laughter from the community center buoying him. The moment of truth had arrived. As he stepped through the doors of the boardroom, with his notebook clutched tightly in hand, the stirring echoed louder in his mind. This was where he would confront not only his colleagues, but his own demons. This time the stakes were higher, and as he took his seat he wondered, was he ready to face the applause or the jeers? The transformation sought after was within reach, yet taking that leap would be his greatest challenge yet. Jake's heart raced as he settled into the boardroom chair, anchored by the stark reality of his surroundings. The sleek environment, dominated by a massive glass table, felt ironically cold against the warmth he had experienced just days ago. He poised his notebook on the surface, nervously tracing its edge with his fingers, as anticipation flooded the air. Eyes turned toward him, some curious, others dismissive. It was as if the weight of all his hidden dreams found expression in this pivotal moment. He began to speak, his voice quivering initially, but he steadied his nerves, drawing inspiration from the memories of laughter and innocence he had shared with the children. "Thank you all for gathering today," he started, surprising himself with the authority he projected. "I'm here to discuss a shift in our vision, one that incorporates community engagement into our business model." The murmurs rippled like a wave across the table. Some were intrigued, others skeptical, but beneath their composed exteriors, Jake could sense their resistance. He pressed forward, each word pushing back against the tide of doubt. His presentation morphed into a tapestry woven from personal anecdotes, like the day he witnessed Mia's elation as she painted a mural, transforming an ordinary wall into a vibrant universe. The joy in her eyes was profound, he articulated, passion rising in his tone. That connection, it ignited something within me. We're not just creators of a product. We're capable of helping build dreams and nourishing optimism in our communities. He observed their reactions, a blend of surprise and skepticism. Greg, the financial advisor Jake had always feared, exchanged a knowing glance with his fellow board member, one of disdain that made Jake's stomach twist. The visceral response only fueled him further. "Imagine what we could achieve," he continued, voice unwavering, "if we pursued partnerships that encourage creativity, foster potential, and build relationships beyond transactions."
These children aren't just a demographic. They're the future we're building for. A strong community enhances our brand and secures sustainable growth. He now felt alive, and as he shared his vision, each point resonated deeper within the space. The balance he sought between professional achievement and personal passion began to crystallize. Yet doubt still simmered beneath the surface. What if the board would rather cling to conventional metrics over revolutionary ideas? Midway through his presentation, Emma, the board's chief strategist, raised her hand. "Are you suggesting we should prioritize community engagement over profit?" she queried, tilting her head with a skeptical smile. Jake inhaled sharply. This was the moment he had anticipated, the direct confrontation. "I believe fostering genuine relationships leads to that profit," he replied, adrenaline coursing through him. "Short-term gains can be deceptive. An investment in community goodwill cultivates loyalty and passion that no quarter can quantify." He noticed Greg's impatience surfacing, his furrowed brow like a tempest brewing. "You think art and outreach are going to save our bottom line?" His dismissive tone cut through the air. Jake tightened his grip on the notebook, feeling the flicker of doubt return. Yet he refused to falter. "It's not just about saving the bottom line. It's about redefining what success means. Real engagement isn't a cost. It's an investment with immeasurable returns." The atmosphere thickened, and Jake's heart drummed in his ears. He could see the shifting dynamics. Some colleagues were intrigued, others set in their skepticism. But he caught a glimpse of an ally forming in Emma's eyes. The notion that he could potentially sway the hearts around the boardroom filled him with hope, but also hinted at fragility. As he concluded, he laid down the challenge. "Consider this a call to action. Let's blend our metrics with purpose and live by the conviction that, together, we can reshape our legacy." A moment of tense silence enveloped the room. What would they choose? The closing remarks hung in the silence, as Jake felt the adrenaline ebb away, replaced by a mix of anticipation and trepidation. He had erupted through the confines of his self-doubt and reached a new plateau, but at what cost? Would they embrace his vision, or would his bold attempt be seen as naive idealism? Jake sat back, the boardroom's weight pressing down on him, yet within, a radical transformation unfolded. It was as if he had unlatched a door to his own soul. But just as a smile crept onto his face, there it was, the uncertainty of the future, thick as the tension in the room. Was his newfound resolve strong enough to endure whatever storm lay ahead? The silence lingered far too long for Jake's comfort, every second stretching with a tension that prickled at the back of his neck.
He could feel the eyes of the board bore into him, some with scrutiny and others with barely concealed judgment. He'd staked everything on this presentation, driven by a newfound mission to align his personal beliefs with his work. Yet he remained painfully aware that his arguments hung precariously in the air. Emma broke the tension first, her voice softer now, tinged with curiosity. "I see potential in your vision, Jake, but we'll need a solid framework. How do we ensure this community engagement doesn't distract from our core objectives?" Jake seized the opportunity. "It begins with a pilot program, small initiatives that could demonstrate real change while aligning with our existing products. We could track metrics, customer feedback, and—" "Customer feedback," Greg interrupted, his tone heavy with skepticism. "The last thing I want to hear about is our customers' feelings on the art they visit. We're in it for the numbers." Jake felt a clamminess creeping into his palms. Fear threatened to cloud his clarity, but he forced his gaze to remain level. What if those feelings translate into loyalty, Greg? What if a positive emotional connection enhances our brand's resilience against market fluctuations? People don't just buy products, they invest in ideals. "Invest in ideals?" Greg scoffed, an incredulous smirk flickering across his face. "You're talking about a fantasy. Don't you see the bottom line is tangible? Ideals don't pay salaries." With effort, Jake quelled his impulse to retaliate. Instead, he sought to align, searching for a response that wouldn't drown in cynicism. "I understand your concerns, but let's consider this. Our competitors are increasingly circling the same airwaves. The brands that create emotional resonance are the ones that thrive. By fostering a sense of belonging, we can distinguish ourselves." He could see Emma weighing his words, the gears in her mind visibly turning. Although Greg remained stubbornly opposed, her effort to engage lifted Jake's spirits. Clarity washed over him as he realized that adapting his approach might turn the tide. "Let's create a feedback loop with pilot initiatives in select neighborhoods," he proposed, his tone steadying with each syllable. "We start with community art programs incorporating local artists like Mia. Data analytics will guide our decisions, so we can measure success quantitatively while making a qualitative impact." For the first time, Jake sensed a shift among the board members. Subtle nods replaced the earlier disdain. Emma leaned forward, her interest piqued, searching for further depth in Jake's strategy. "Would these programs involve volunteers from our company as well?" Her question lingered in the air, raw with potential. Yes, the answer burst forth, invigorated. We'd allow employees to share their skills. It's a two-way street. They'll gain invaluable insights into the communities we impact, and those connections could lead to profound brand ambassadors.
The unease in his chest began to lift, replaced by a burgeoning excitement. Jake could almost feel the room's energy pulsating with enthusiasm as he captured the imagination of his colleagues. Yet, just as he felt a sense of victory approaching, the looming shadow of doubt interjected once more. Greg's brows knit tighter. And what if this fails? What are we prepared to sacrifice? Playtime for your pet projects? Jake swallowed hard. The question ignited a spark within him, one that illuminated the stakes he played for. Failure isn't the risk we must fear, Greg. The loss of innovation for fear of failure is the real tragedy. We have to evolve, redefine what our brand embodies. Greg's jaw tightened as Jake stared him down, viscerally aware that this confrontation was equally personal as it was professional. It dawned on him. He wasn't merely fighting for a shift in the company's focus. He was battling against the constraints of his own fears. But self-doubt and fear had never built anything worthwhile. The boldness that had propelled him this far was forged in confronting these very anxieties. He realized that his previous fear of rejection had paralyzed him, turning his ambition into a facade of what he believed the board wanted to hear. As the discussion continued, Jake's resolve fortified. He detected the gleam in Emma's eyes. She was beginning to see the merit in his argument. Jake knew they were still far from a conclusion. The board's ultimate decision could pivot on tomorrow's vote, each individual championing their faction's interest. He might emerge victorious or face an unyielding defeat. Yet a new possibility ignited within him. This was about more than just business. This was a personal reckoning. He had chosen a path that encouraged others, and now drew that firm boundary between passion and profit. The moment of revelation struck. Jake wasn't alone in that room. Still, he couldn't shake the ominous feeling that the storm wasn't over yet. As he prepared to wrap up, one last statement sat at the edge of his lips, a challenge for clarity. Anyone can aim for profit, but how many can say they've left a legacy? The tension across the table thickened once again, a palpable weight of a decision impending. Would they choose legacy over mere profit? Jake's mind raced, half excited, half terrified, as he prepared for the upcoming judgment, knowing that regardless of the outcome, his transformation had only just begun. Would he rise to the occasion, or shrink back into the shadows he once inhabited? The answer loomed over him, as exhilarating as it was daunting. As Jake vacated the conference room, threads of uncertainty wove themselves into his mind. He could almost hear the echoes of heated discussions bouncing off the walls, a stark reminder that today's confrontation was merely an appetizer to the main course yet to come. Would the board truly embrace his vision?
Would they venture down a path that prioritized emotional engagement, or would they retreat to the safety of numbers? Walking through the sleek corridors of the office, he allowed the rhythmic click of his shoes to ground him. Every step stirred memories of late nights, of brewing ideas that were at once bold and fragile. But more than that, they too solidified an unfamiliar resolve within him. He envisioned a future where his work flourished, where ideals were the very currency that empowered change. Once back at his desk, Jake paused to breathe. The tranquil hum of the office contrasted sharply with the tempest brewing inside him. Moments earlier, someone had challenged him, and every instinct had screamed to protect his idea. Instead, he had chosen to own it, to embrace the potential risks without flinching. The thought kindled something lively within. His computer screen lit up, a familiar glare he had often sought comfort in, yet his mind was drifting elsewhere. Would Mia truly support the new initiatives? Each time he envisioned her vibrant artworks, he could feel the heartbeat of his project pulsating stronger. The upcoming project meetings would require her insights. They needed an artist's touch to guide their strategies, to validate the emotional component he was striving for. Just as he opened a fresh document titled Community Engagement Strategy, an email notification popped up. It was from Emma. Subject line, following up. Jake's heart raced as he clicked it open. Jake, she wrote warmly, thanks for today. I appreciate your boldness and conviction. Can we schedule a time to brainstorm? I believe there's real potential to mold this into something tangible that benefits both our company and the wider community. Jake's heart lifted. He quickly typed back, fingers flying over the keys. Emma's willingness to engage further meant he wasn't alone in this pursuit. Absolutely, he replied. Let's harness that energy and get creative. How about tomorrow morning?
As he hit send, a grin broke across his face. It dawned on him that he was no longer a passive participant in his career. He was setting the stage, crafting partnerships, and tapping hidden connections that lay dormant within his work life. This development felt like a seismic shift. The confidence to cultivate his vision was a transformative leap away from his prior self. But then he hesitated. Would Greg see Emma's support as a threat? Would he double down on his skepticism, branding Jake's ambitions as folly? The fear swelled within him once more, but this time he chose to confront it. His aspirations needed defending, and more importantly, nurturing. Hours passed, his mind weaving through nuanced strategies and innovative ideas. He envisioned the marketing narrative behind their initiatives, what angles would stir public interest, how the story could breathe life beyond their conference tables.
He realized that not only was he championing a project, but also forging an identity that embraced creativity alongside profitability. Just as fatigue began to settle in after a productive evening, Jake received another surprise notification, a video link sent by Mia with the note, "Thought you'd find this interesting." Curiosity piqued, he clicked it open. The video showcased a community art initiative that spurred not only engagement, but also enriched local neighborhoods and benefited artists. Jake's excitement surged as he watched the transformations unfold. Here's what change could look like. The community came alive through shared experiences and emotion. He realized what Emma believed could now be tangible, a blueprint woven from passion. Inspired, he picked up the phone, reaching out to Mia. "Can we meet tomorrow? I think we can work together to curate a program that could redefine how we engage with communities." "Mia, your voice is crucial in this," he emphasized, feeling the weight of significance with every word. Her enthusiasm streamed through the line, energizing his spirit. "Absolutely, Jake. I'm excited to bring this to life." As their conversation continued, a realization clutched at him. This was not merely a personal or professional advancement. He was finally uncovering layers of his identity, a commitment to a journey that had begun beneath the shroud of self-doubt. The pieces were fitting together, yet the reality of tomorrow loomed like a dark cloud on the horizon. Would everything unravel under scrutiny, suffocating his blossoming ambition? Just as he concluded the line with Mia, a newfound determination solidified in his chest. He would embrace the challenge of tomorrow. Today's step had only been the beginning. The stakes were high, but so was his resolve. Feeling restless, he glanced at his reflection in the office window, aware that he was on the cusp of something significant. Tomorrow, he'd have to fend not only for his ideas, but also for the legacy he wished to forge. It was time to turn that legacy into something tangible. He took a deep breath, readying himself for the battle that awaited. The moment of truth wouldn't just challenge his ideas, it would define who he was becoming. Each thought sent a ripple of anticipation through him. Tomorrow would be a reckoning, for him and for those who dismissed the heart behind his vision. Would they understand? Would they see the potential? The answer lingered in the air, heavy yet electrifying, as he let it sweep over him like an impending storm. The hum of the office was muted as Jake settled into the conference room for the morning meeting. Familiar faces filled the seats around the long table, but today felt different, charged with an undercurrent of trepidation. The stakes had never felt so high, and the anticipation hung in the air like dense fog. He could feel it coiling around him, inviting self-doubt to creep back in.
Emma entered, her energy radiating, and as she settled into a seat next to him, a wave of validation washed away some of his anxiety. Their collaborative vision for a new community engagement strategy, sparked by last night's conversation, hovered at the forefront of his thoughts. With Emma's creative spirit igniting his resolve, he felt ready to challenge the status quo. But then Greg's voice sliced through the air, slicing deep into Jake's newfound confidence. "Let's get moving. I want to hear about this so-called vision you think can transform our outreach." There, in Greg's tone, pointed and dismissive, lay the challenge Jake had anticipated. The walls felt closer, the air heavier. Jake wasn't just defending an idea, he was defending himself. He squared his shoulders and risked a glance at Emma, who gave him an encouraging nod. Taking a deep breath, he spoke up. "Our proposal combines traditional marketing with a deeper emotional engagement. We aim to connect genuinely with the community, creating lasting relationships that go beyond simple outreach." He noticed Greg's steely gaze scrutinizing him. The tension groaned like a string about to snap.
Sounds good in theory, Jake, but what metrics will ensure this isn't just an expense? Show me the numbers. Jake's pulse quickened. Metrics are important, but they've often overshadowed the value of emotional connectivity. We're aiming for more than just numbers. We want to create a narrative that resonates, one that people will want to be part of. That kind of engagement can enhance our metrics organically. His voice edged with newfound conviction. Yet each word felt like a gamble, a line drawn in the sand. Would he hold on to this delicate balance of assertiveness and vulnerability? The weight of potential rejection bore down on him heavily. We're looking to engage real people with real experiences, where our brand becomes part of the story they want to tell. He glanced at Emma, seeking reinforcement in her expression. There was a spark of excitement igniting in her eyes. But Greg's expression soured, skepticism painted on his face. That sounds great, but where's the proof? How do you expect the board to be sold on a warm and fuzzy angle when all they see are figures? The pressure clenched around Jake's heart. He'd been so focused on the emotional aspect that he had overlooked the necessity of solid data. Suddenly, he felt exposed, a lone figure stepping into the ring while a crowd jeered from the sidelines. He had to shift gears, dive deeper. This video Mia shared with me last night highlighted a real success story. People engaging in a creative initiative that not only changed perceptions, but also boosted local economic activity. I'm meeting with her later to discuss how we might adapt those principles to our own strategy. The words tumbled out, driven by urgency. Silence enveloped the room.
For a moment, Jake felt a camaraderie with the pulse of uncertainty that filled the air, where vulnerability could meet innovation, but he knew better than to let it stop there. As he continued to outline the plan, he was struck by a powerful realization. He was weaving his own narrative, one that could inspire change. Each component of his strategy became a stepping stone, a testament of resilience, pushing against the wave of skepticism. Jake found himself gaining momentum, articulating the impact of emotional engagement on consumer loyalty, supported by recent industry trends that mirrored his intuition. The room shifted. He sensed an intrigue beginning to unfurl. Once the presentation concluded, feedback poured in, a mixed tapestry of uncertainty and mild intrigue. Greg's criticism still lingered heavily, but Jake chose to interpret it as a challenge rather than defeat. "Let's take this further," Emma said, her tone firm. "If we work collaboratively with the creative team, we can develop specific metrics to address Greg's concerns without sacrificing the core vision." As they dismissed the meeting, Jake's heart raced with both anxiety and resolve. There was still a long road ahead, filled with risks and the potential for failure. Each step felt monumental. Walking out of the conference room, he realized he had crossed into new territory. He was standing up for himself and his vision, a commitment that would either solidify his place in the company or lead to a reckoning he could not yet foresee. With every breath, he felt a surge of empowerment, but as he looked back, he couldn't shake the feeling that Greg wasn't finished with him yet. The confrontation left a lingering taste of uncertainty. What could come next? The next pivotal challenge was looming just beyond the horizon, and Jake knew that once the board reconvened, it would be a battleground of ideas versus tradition. His heart pounded with anticipation, a gut instinct urging him forward into the fray. As Jake navigated the echoing halls back to his desk, the cadence of his heartbeat matched the rhythm of his thoughts. The meeting had ignited something within him, and the initial flicker of confidence began to spark into a flame. Yet the shadow of Greg's skepticism lingered, a constant reminder of the wall he still faced. Jake sat down, took his laptop out, and began drafting a plan to refine the presentation. He noticed Emma approaching, her steps light but purposeful. "You did well in there," she said, leaning against the edge of his desk. "I could see the shift in the room when you mentioned Mia's project. That's a powerful reference." "Thanks, Emma. It feels like I'm walking a tightrope. One misstep with Greg and I could fall," Jake replied, pulling up Mia's video on his screen. His critique cut deep, but maybe I can turn that critique into a solid foundation for our strategy. Emma shifted closer, curiosity drawing her in. "How so?"
I need to frame my narrative in both emotional and quantitative terms. If I can illustrate how emotional connections translate to numbers, maybe I can win him over. But that means I need to do more research, collect data that will create a bridge between what I believe and what he needs. Her eyes sparkled with understanding. That's the spirit. Let's meet with Mia and brainstorm how her initiative turned feelings into actual engagement metrics. She paused, considering. We can also reach out to the analytics team. They might have access to data on emotional-driven campaigns. Jake's mind raced. A collaborative approach could potentially shift the narrative. It could metamorphose his vision into something tangible. You're right. Let's harness our collective strengths.
As they began outlining the next steps, a sense of urgency propelled Jake. Each idea flowed with a newfound purpose. He realized that in order to win over Greg, he needed a compelling narrative intertwined with undeniable proof. Every statistic, every success story needed to become a pillar supporting their vision. Later that day, they huddled with Mia, who was equally enthusiastic about integrating the metrics. Our project saw a significant increase in social media engagement and participant turnout, she explained, highlighting the numbers on her laptop. Jake felt a rush of excitement as they dissected how to apply her findings to their strategy. However, as he peered over the data, a troubling thought crept in. Would the board sell out to cold, hard numbers at the expense of emotional resonance? The weight of that question hung in the air, taunting him. It was a testament to the fine line he walked between passion and pragmatism. The following days unfolded into a rigorous lab of creative brainstorming and data crunching. Long hours at the office brought moments where Jake's confidence soared, only to be tethered back by doubt. He immersed himself in industry research, looking for every piece of evidence that substantiated his core argument. Each time he found another success story, his resolve would strengthen. But each flicker of assurance was often met with the shadow of Greg's critical assessment. Just hours before the board meeting, Jake combed through their refined presentation. With every statistic, success story, and visual representation, he felt the weight of expectation press down on him. He had transformed from a mere participant in the discourse to an architect of change, yet doubt nagged at the corners of his mind. That evening, as he prepared to close up, a sudden realization struck him. There was something deeply personal about this challenge. It wasn't just about defending his vision or winning Greg over. It was about carving out his space in an arena that thrived on certainty, and somehow unearthing confidence he didn't know existed within him.
As he shut down his laptop, Jake felt an electrifying mixture of apprehension and determination swirl inside him. No matter the outcome, he was no longer merely an idea, but a force with substance. The next morning, the board would gather, and the moment of truth awaited him. A confrontation not just against them, but against his own fear of failure. But with every instinct clawing at him, he knew one thing for sure. He was prepared for battle. Would he finally emerge as the architect of his narrative, or fall victim to his own self-doubt? Tomorrow, he would find out. The air in the boardroom felt charged, a palpable tension as the members entered, settling into their seats with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Jake stood slightly apart, heart pounding, aligning his thoughts amidst the clatter of chairs and the rustle of papers. The projector hummed to life, and the glow illuminated his presentation slides, a culmination of sleepless nights and relentless brainstorming. As he took center stage, Jake forced himself to breathe deeply, summoning the confidence that had flickered within him all week. He started strongly, detailing Mia's project, a vivid tapestry of engagement metrics woven with heartfelt narratives that illustrated how emotional resonance influenced participation. Their data danced before the board, bright graphs and compelling visuals reinforcing his argument. Yet, hidden beneath the surface, apprehension coiled tightly around his thoughts, particularly with Greg's fixed expression locked on him. Jake could feel the weight of scrutiny pressing down, almost as if Greg were willing his mistakes to surface. "Emotions drive decisions," Jake proclaimed, allowing his passion to seep into his voice. Empirical data shows that stories engage audiences far beyond mere statistics. Look at Mia's project. It was a perfect demonstration of this dynamic. He paused for effect, searching the faces around the table, measuring their reactions, gauging whether he was drawing them in or losing them altogether. "Impressive metrics, sure," Greg interjected, a cool skepticism lacing his words. "But how do we know that emotional engagement translates into long-term loyalty? Isn't that an idealistic view of the consumer psyche?" The question sent a jolt through Jake. His carefully crafted narrative felt momentarily fragmented under the weight of Greg's challenge. He suppressed the urge to shrink back, drawing on the resolve he had cultivated in the preceding weeks. "That's a valid point, Greg. However, consider the long-term effects of brand loyalty built upon genuine emotional connections. If we neglect to recognize how our audience feels, we risk losing them entirely." Jake's own words sparked a realization. He wasn't simply defending a strategy. He was advocating for a fundamental shift in how they engaged with their audience.
As Greg continued to probe, Jake understood that every question was an opportunity, not just to defend his vision, but to uncover layers of his own capabilities. He leaned into that perspective, evolving his approach on the fly. What if we initiated a trial campaign designed to test both narrative styles? We could gather comparative data on emotional versus metric-driven engagement. We can assess real-time reactions and ultimately ensure we're not just providing solutions, but genuinely connecting with our audience's needs. A murmuration of intrigue rippled across the table, shared glances of consideration unfurling among board members. Jake sensed a shift. His confidence sparked again, each word a flicker sustaining the flame birthed the night before. He continued articulating ideas around the trial campaign, inventive strategies for implementation, and metrics for evaluation, relishing the growing enthusiasm in the room. Minutes passed, and the presentation unfolded with increasing rhythm. The initial discomfort dissipated, evolving into a collaborative energy as discussions ignited around potential paths forward. In this exchange, Jake experienced a transformation. He felt less like a novice defending an idea and more like a contributor shaping a collective vision. With every critical question, with every nuanced debate, his confidence deepened. It wasn't just about grappling with Greg. It was a confrontation with his own insecurities, revealing layers of resilience he hadn't known existed. At the conclusion of the meeting, the board members nodded with contemplative expressions, their initial skepticism giving way to curiosity. As they left the room, Jake exhaled, a mix of relief and exhilaration flooding through him. However, before he could let his victory settle, Greg leaned closer. "Not bad, Jake, but this is just the beginning. You'll need to stay sharp. I'll be watching." The warning hung in the air like an unspent bullet, leaving Jake acutely aware that he had only scratched the surface of this ongoing battle. "Bring it on," he thought, a new spark igniting within him as he prepared to refine his approach even further. After every rise came another challenge, and he was more than ready to face what lay ahead. What would it take to not only prove Greg wrong, but to redefine his own narrative in this high-stakes game? The weeks that followed the presentation unraveled like a vibrant tapestry, each thread woven with lessons learned and challenges embraced. Jake Thompson stood in front of his office window, gazing out at the Chicago skyline, this time feeling a swell of genuine pride instead of emptiness. The call to action he had taken at the board meeting had transformed into a movement, one that blended business acumen with heartfelt connections. In the weeks that followed, the pilot program Jake conceptualized with Mia had launched successfully.
They integrated community art projects tailored to local demographics, and the engagement metrics exceeded expectations. The company began to see not only increased customer loyalty, but also a renewed brand image, resonating with charisma and authenticity. The analytics department reported back a 35% increase in engagement across social media platforms, and customer feedback transformed from transactional to emotional narratives that celebrated shared experiences. Jake reveled in those data points, yes, but even more, he savored the personal connections that blossomed as a result. Collaborating with Mia inspired profound changes within him, igniting his creativity wild as the artwork they produced together. No longer merely a corporate CEO, Jake had become a catalyst for change and a promoter of heartfelt connections. After one particularly successful community event that featured Mia's artwork, Jake received a letter from the board detailing their unanimous support for expanding community outreach initiatives. Emma's voice, now a constant ally in this endeavor, echoed in the conference room as she presented metrics demonstrating that the initiative was paving the way for long-term partnerships with local artists and schools. Yet, amid all this progress, it was Greg who surprised him. Instead of continued skepticism, Jake discovered an unexpected ally. Greg had begun to recognize the potential in this new approach to engagement and flowed with the current rather than against it. "You've proven there's merit in a balanced strategy, Jake," he said during their last board meeting. "I'm impressed with what you've achieved and agree that this can reshape our legacy." Moments like this solidified the belief in his vision and taught him the invaluable lesson of embracing collaboration, even with those who initially seem at odds with your ideas. The professional conflict that had once felt insurmountable had transformed into a channel for growth, as each board member began sharing their own ideas for further development. As Jake concluded another engaging session with Mia, now firmly established as the youthful creative director for their community engagement strategy, he felt an exhilarating surge of fulfillment. They discussed plans for a mural festival that would connect various neighborhoods, offering local artists a platform to shine.
Mia was brimming with enthusiasm, her ideas illuminating a path forward. "Think of the joy this could bring," she exclaimed, her eyes alight with possibility. For Jake, this collaboration had solidified him as a leader, not defined solely by profit margins, but by social impact. Each conversation with the children at the community center, each laugh shared with Mia, became markers of a life fully lived. It was now one marked by connection rather than isolation. Jake made a conscious effort to attend family gatherings he had previously shunned, emerging from the shadows of his self-imposed constraints.
Each reunion felt like a victory, a personal breakthrough, as he united his professional growth with the connections he once neglected. These moments reaffirmed his belief that genuine relationships were as important as business strategies. He often found himself speaking at local schools, sharing his journey and the significance of merging professional ambition with personal purpose. The feedback he received deepened his resolve. Seeing the impact of his words motivated him to continually strive for an authentic legacy. As the sun set over Lake Michigan one evening, Jake felt encapsulated by an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. He had constructed bridges from the fortress he once inhabited, a fortress built on ambition, yes, but now with walls adorned with artistry and purpose. No longer just the solitary CEO of a corporation, he had emerged as a champion for community engagement and human connection, turning vulnerability into strength. And as he basked in that realization, he knew that he had finally conquered not just the boardroom, but the silent battles inside him, fears of inadequacy and self-doubt. He had achieved a profound personal transformation and established himself within a new reality that embraced compassion alongside ambition, a life where success was measured not by the height of the corporate ladder, but by the depth of human connection. Now was the moment to honor that journey, the journey from isolation to meaningful engagement, from ambition to legacy, and invite others to join that quest. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.